this is Smart 24, and this is where we give the best of business broadcasting. And my name is Julius Sugar. We'll come back from that very short commercial break. And well, it's just all about driving business. These are financial markets that we're bringing you right here from the S24 Command Center. And it's just right here with me, Julius Sugar. Well, let's now get into, there is a very important segment that basically we had left out, and that is the Forex and how these different currencies are performing. So let's have a look at these currencies over there, and we have now the opening for the US dollar. The US dollar is opening at 3,508.78, as you can see over there, and of course you can also see that as of midday we don't have those figures yet, and also we don't have the closing figures as of yet. But by 6 p.m. in the evening, you can have these closing figures by that time. So you can also see that we have the Great Britain pound opening at 4,766.06, as you can see over there. And well, we will be actually having the closing as well quite soon. So it's buying at 4,766.08, and as we can see just right over there, so that is it. The US dollar is buying at 3,508.78 and selling at 3,518.78. That is those are the opening figures as of today. And you can also look at the Great Britain pound buying at 4,766.06 and selling at 4,779.65. That is the Great Britain pound. And well, you can see also that the euro is buying at 3,979.11 and selling at 3,990.45. So we've seen kind of interesting trends with the Great Britain pound and the euro. The euro has been at 4,000. It's been ranging around 4,000, but we have seen the Great Britain pound actually going. It's very actually more volatile than the euro, as you can see over there. So it's way by far very higher, by about 700 shillings. And you can see that the Kenyan shilling is basically opening at, is buying at 30.87 and selling at 30.96. Many of us trading in Kenya, you may actually want to keep your eyes on the Forex, because when you're actually crossing the border going to Kenya, you may require some bit of Kenyan shillings, and you actually have to know that the Kenyan shilling is buying at 30.87 and selling at 30.96. So that is a very important thing over there to know. Well, also looking at the Tanzanian shilling is at 1.51%, is buying at 1.51% and selling at 1.52%. These are opening figures, remember, because we don't have the closing yet. Normally the closing figures come in at the end of the day, probably about 6 p.m. We can have them over there by Bank of Uganda. And you can also see that it is very important to note that if you're buying and selling in Tanzania, the interest rates will be very important for you to actually keep your eyes on, because it determines how much money you can basically exchange for Ugandan shillings in order for you to access Tanzanian shillings if you want to trade in Tanzania. So all these currencies basically are very, very much important to note, because many countries are trading, many African countries are trading in these terms. So as we can have a look over there at the South African Rand opening, it is buying at 231.58 and selling at 232.24. So that is a very important trend to note as well. So you can see that these are, as of now, the latest Forex updates, that is in terms of the foreign exchange rates So you can see that there that the midday, the US dollar normally has, because it's very, very much used all over the world, is the most used currency all over the globe. And so you have a bit of more attention over there on it. You have the midday, it keeps changing. You have the midday, it's very volatile. You have the midday figures, which aren't yet there, and the closing figures not yet there. So are other figures. So all these are opening figures as of now. So you may want to basically follow up what has trended all throughout the day by the close of day to find out what figure each foreign exchange rate is basically displaying. So it's very important to know. Now let's have a look at also one of the most important parameters as we were closing the year. As we're closing the year 2022, we're basically looking at GDP growth rates of countries. And this is something that we have not really put our eyes on of late, but I think it's very important to note the GDP growth rates. Are you an investor in China? Are you an investor in America or any country? You may want to keep your eyes on the GDP growth rate, because they can also determine it determines the amount of economic activity within the country, and thus it means that probably your money has a higher chance of making more money if you're an investor. So let's have a look at most of these countries. So you have their GDP growth rates over there, as you can see, and starting with Burkina Faso. Well, GDP is gross domestic product. It is the total of everything produced by a country. So basically, it's very important. But GDP growth rate represents the change. It's a change in a country's growth as per that particular year or quarter, based on a specific period of time. So Burkina Faso is its GDP is standing at 22.5%. Wow, that is quite something. That's a high GDP growth rate. So we can see that Burkina Faso in Africa has basically had, as of June 2021, was the highest. It had the highest GDP growth rate. And now looking at Seychelles, it also had quite a high GDP growth of about 21.7%, and it is quite something to note as well. Seychelles and Burkina Faso, I think, are really doing great in that regard. And you have Senegal, 10.4% GDP growth rate. And well, it is very important to note that well, we have been in the COVID-19 pandemic, and many of these countries, as you can see over there, have been going through a lot of economic turmoil. And well, we are only recovering from the pandemic, but almost every sector and almost every country in the world has been affected, except, of course, a few companies that are basically into technology. You can see the US, they've had a lot of, higher monies to pour into the economy, and thus they have been able to weather most of these economic shocks. So African countries as well have to, they may have to basically, find a way to inject more in the economy. And as we said before, it is very important to note that the interest rates is one of the ways you can boost the economy, because you make money cheaper. And then the GDP growth rate for Senegal is at 10.4%, and the previous was 10.7% as of September 2021. And this is quite a commendable increase as well. And also, it's very important to note that Uganda's education has a bit of suffered. I'm here to see Uganda's figures over here as a representation of its GDP growth rate, because Uganda is one of the countries in Africa and maybe the world that has basically gotten their education freed from the lockdown. But anyway, Rwanda is at 10.1% GDP growth rate. That is quite commendable as well. Rwanda has been performing quite well for a long time. And we must say that Rwanda is one of the countries in Africa that basically has the biggest potential of really becoming icons in the African continent. So if America has something called the American dream, then Uganda should have something called, Africa should have something called the African dream. And the African dream is to basically empower other Africans and also move along the waves of the fourth industrial revolution and disrupt the status quo, innovate, and come up with lots and lots of very important, very much important economic parameters that basically, propel the country forward. So Rwanda has been basically very much at the forefront of growth in Africa, but it has its GDP growth at about 10.1%. So Rwanda as well, what I love about Rwanda is that when the president, about 2-3 years ago, when he was asked at the World Economic Forum that, okay, what is the vision of Rwanda? He was like, okay, I'm a politician, but at the same time, I am here for business to support entrepreneurs. So I think Uganda can borrow something from Rwanda as well. Nevertheless, there have been a lot of tensions between Rwanda and Uganda, as you can see at the Gatuna border and so many other issues. But nevertheless, their GDP growth rate still stands very much at impressive levels. So Kenya as well, our neighbor just right over here on the east, its GDP growth rate stands at 9.9% as of September 2021, and it basically reduced from 10.1% being its previous GDP growth rate, probably in the last quarter. But you can see over there that, well, Kenya is performing at very good and impressive rates per se, because, well, Kenya for a long time has a lot of economic comparative advantages, being a country that's not landlocked, just right at, it has a very long coastline that is exposed to the Indian Ocean, but however, its GDP growth rate stands at 9.9%. So Cape Verde has its GDP growth rate at 9% as well, Botswana at 8.4%. Now, when you look at these figures over here, many countries, right from Senegal to Rwanda to Kenya and to Botswana, Egypt, and Botswana. So you have a look at the previous, when you have a look at the previous GDP growth rates, it's quite alarming, right from Rwanda, from 20.6% up to 10.1%. So many of these countries have been affected. That's why you see a very huge decline in their GDP growth rates in their quarters. So you can see over there that also Kenya recently at 10.1 now dropped to 9.9. Cape Verde was at 30.8% as of September last year, and now GDP growth rate of about 9%. So many of these economies have slowed down. That is quite something to note over there. And when you look at Egypt as well, Botswana as well, you can see that their previous GDP growth rate as of September 2021 was at 37.3, and now you find it at 8.4, a staggering 8.4. Well, that is something as well to note, I think. So it is very important to take note of these trends, because they will tell you in the near term, okay, how your money is going to perform. So by all standards, it is very important to know. Let's have a look at other countries as well before we get on to the next chapter, which is stock markets. You can see there that Egypt is at 8.3%. That's the GDP growth rate of Egypt. Yeah, so it has a bit of improve from 7.2%. And Egypt is one of those non-sub-Saharan African countries that are basically, I think, are moving at a faster pace compared to other African countries in terms of growth. Benin as well, you can see over there that it was at 3.9% previously as of June last year, but now you can see that it has basically improved almost twofold to 8.2% annual GDP growth rate. That is quite something to note, and I think it is very commendable. So has Ivory Coast as well, 3.9%. It increased from 3.9% as of June last year up to 8.1% as of today. And you can see there Morocco at 15.2% as of September last year to, there's a huge decline over there by almost 50% to 7.8% GDP annual growth rate in Morocco. Yeah, so Morocco is also one of the non-sub-Saharan African countries, but also many of these countries that basically represent in the African camp of late have basically shown that their figures have increased than decreased. So it is something to note over there. Well, you have Niger as well over there at 6.9%, having increased from 3.1% as of June 2021 last year. And then you have Togo as well. As of June 2021, you had 2.9, and well, now you have a very impressive GDP growth rate of about 7.8% if you're basically to invest in Togo. For investors that basically would wish to look at Togo, and so it is very important to note that its GDP growth rate is quite impressive because it's almost a threefold increase. And then you have Guinea-Bissau over there. It increased from 2.7% as of June 2021 up to 6.8% as of now. So, of course, there's so many others that you can see there. Ghana, one of the African icons in Africa, is one of the countries that basically we look forward to as really having progressively moved forward, keeping other factors constant. I like to say keeping other factors constant because, well, as a country may actually be moving forward, many times there are certain indicators that many times aren't doing well. So there's nothing like a utopia per se, a perfect economy. So you won't find that anywhere. So let's have a look at Mali. It also increased from 2.7 to 6.3% as of June 2021. So having a look also at Ethiopia, one of the most populous countries that we have seen, also had their GDP growth rate from 9 to 6.1% as of June 2020. So you find that there is indeed a very huge decline in economic growth. However, Ethiopia has been in recent years, pre-COVID times, it's been performing at a very impressive rate, and it's been one of the countries that have been fastest growing, showing very good signs of economic growth and development. That is Ethiopia for you. But it's one of the it's one of the countries with the best airlines per se. Yeah, Ethiopian Airlines, if you've basically used it, in spite of its recent struggles when it basically had a crash with the 737 MAX Boeing. Well, keeping the factors constant, it's one of the best in Africa. I think the best airlines in Africa. So you can see their growth having basically reduced from 9 to 6.1. Then also Congo. The Congo, you can see it has a negative growth. As of December 2021, you see that Congo declined by far. It was in negatives, and Congo and the eastern part of Congo has been quite unstable for a very, very long time. And you can really see that political instability or stability has a very big effect on how the economy plays out. So, however, it basically at 5.7% economic growth as of now. And Mauritius, 17.8 as of September 2021 to 5.5. That's a huge decline over there as well. Guinea, from 7 to 5.2%. And then Tanzania, our neighbor in the south. They had their GDP as of September 2021 at 4.5%. And we can see some bit of slight increase over there as well in Tanzania, 5.2%. Cameroon also, you can see that Cameroon has been able as well to have a great comeback from the post-COVID times, from 2.6% to 4.2%. Nigeria, the largest economy in Africa, apparently its GDP annual growth rate has not been quite impressive. It's been basically a decline, as you can see. So as of December 2021, Nigeria's GDP annual growth rate reduced from 4.03% up to 3.98%. And that is quite something, that's something to note, because Nigeria is still the largest economy in spite of its slow growth. So slow growth doesn't really mean that that it isn't the largest economy in Africa anymore. So it's just that it has stopped growing at the pace it was in recent years. Yes, so Uganda also, you can see over there that Uganda's annual GDP growth rate as of September 2021, in the last quarter of last year, it was at 12.9% and now at 3.9%. That's 3.8%. That's Uganda's current annual GDP growth rate. And it's quite something to be noted, because Uganda is where I am basically broadcasting live to you right now. Okay, so Zambia also, we have Zambia as well. Its GDP annual growth rate reduced from, as of 2021, last year, September, the last quarter, it reduced from 8.1% to 3.5%. That's quite something to know. And many of us are quite very much familiar with Zambia, because Zambia, they are Bantu people. And if you actually listen to a Zambian speaking, you may think they're speaking actually Luganda. So it is quite something very much important to know. Algeria's annual GDP growth rate reduced from 6.3% to 3.4%, right over there, as you can see. And Mozambique as well had a very slight decline from 3.36% to 3.32% now, as of December 2021. And South Africa as well, one of the countries we must look forward to at all times. We have our eyes focused on it because it's one of the largest economies in Africa, and also it has the best economic parameters. Its indicators are basically a bit higher than many other African countries, in spite of its other economic and political challenges. However, as of September, as of the last quarter last year, it had its GDP at 19.1%, reduced to 2.9%. That's a staggering fall. That's as of the last quarter of 2021. So having also a look at Lesotho, a small country over there, also had a very, by 10 percentage points, it reduced by 10 percentage points over there, as you can see, from 12.7% as of September 2021, last quarter, to 2.7%. So you can also see over there that in Lesotho, in Namibia, there has been a decline from 3 to 2.4%, and then Djibouti from 7.8 to 1.4 as of December 2020. So some of these figures have not really much of change because of the information flow. It's not been quite very much swift, but we'll have that information also coming quite soon, as of last year, as of the last quarter of last year. So in Malawi, you can also see over there that, it kind of reduced from 5.5% to 0.9%. Angola from negative 0.2% to 0.8%. That's a very small growth over there. And Tunisia from 16.2%. Tunisia, as you can see, as of the last quarter, it has had a very staggering growth. By staggering, I mean it's been a very drastic fall from 16.2 to 0.3%. So Comoros from 2 to 0.2. So it's right now 0.2 as of December 2020. So many of these other figures are basically not much yet updated as of December last year, because they basically show that they were last updated in December 2020. So, but however, having a very slight look at this, Burundi is very much is a country that we look forward to basically hearing from, because it's our neighbor almost. Well, after Rwanda, then you have Burundi right down there. It's a very small country. It had its GDP growth rate from 4.1% as of December 2020 up to negative 0.3, meaning that it basically even had a very negative. It decreased. It didn't decrease its growth, but it decreased its economy by 0.3%. Same as Chad. Same as Eritrea at 0.6% decrease of the economy. And then the Chad also decrease of 0.9% in the economy. Somalia, the same thing. Somalia is one of the countries in Africa that have been quite politically unstable for a very long time. And no wonder you can see a little bit of the signs to show that indeed it's been in turmoil. Gabon as well, you can see over there that it's been 2.9 as of December 2020. Many of these figures, remember, have not been updated as of last year, but they'll basically keep coming in, because as they come in, we shall be giving you the latest updates. So then Somalia, then you have, we've seen Somalia. Now you have Swaziland. Actually, Swaziland is a very small country also there in South Africa. A very small country surrounded by South Africa, and I think it's actually showing a very huge decline over here as well. It was at 2.2% as of December 2022 is GDP growth rate, but its size of the economy further declined by 2.4% as of then. So Sierra Leone, we can also see that as of December 2020, the same story, a negative increase from 5.4% to negatives. That means that its economy has further declined. It has cut its productivity has been further declined by 2.7%. Same as Liberia at negative 2.5% as of December 2020 to negative 3%. So Mauritania and many of these other numbers, as you can see, Zimbabwe is of interest to us, because we would like to, there's so many issues to do with Zimbabwe over there, and you can see that as of December 2020, it was basically at, its economy had reduced by 6.5%. It further reduced by 4.1% as of late. So, all these figures over here, Republic of the Congo and Sudan and Libya, have all had negative growth. But Libya is also of interest to us, because Libya, for a long time, since the death of its former ruler, Muammar Gaddafi, has been suffering and going through a lot of political turmoil, and thus we can see that it has the highest GDP decline of about 60.3%. So Libya's GDP is in negatives. It has basically reduced by 60. Its economy, it means that its economy has reduced by 60.3%. That's a very, very huge and worrying kind of economic kind of trend. So it is something to basically watch out for. However, that is what we have for you as of the GDP annual growth rates. And just keep with us. We're going to be bringing you lots and lots of more other information that is quite very much useful for your business decision making later on as we go on with the show, and also as we look into the stock market and the best performing stock markets in Africa and the global stock markets in the globe.